Imagine a child born into wealth but surrounded by loneliness. A boy who lost his parents too soon, left with an uncertain future. He was just an ordinary child, yet destiny had chosen him to become the man who would bring freedom to an entire continent. That child was Simón Bolívar, the liberator of Latin America. This is his story. Let's uncover it together. Fact 1. Wealth and loneliness. Simón Bolívar's childhood world. Simón Bolívar was born on July 24, 1783 in Venezuela, into a wealthy Creole family. Although his family held a high social status, Bolívar's childhood was marked by an absence of love and affection. His parents were often away from home, leaving young Simón to be raised mostly by relatives and household servants. The emotional emptiness he experienced during these early years shaped him into an independent and determined character. Losing both of his parents at a young age brought sorrow, but also gave him resilience and inner strength. Under the guidance of his grandparents and tutors, Bolívar's greatest inspiration came from European Enlightenment ideas and the stories of legendary heroes. While his family's wealth provided him with opportunities, it could not replace the warmth and support he lacked. This void pushed him inward, sparking deep reflection and fueling his desire for great ambitions. Thus, Bolívar's childhood, though difficult, became the foundation of the heroic destiny that awaited him. Fact 2. Simón Bolívar's education and inspiration. Although Simón Bolívar's childhood was challenging, his true journey began when he set foot in Europe. From a young age, Bolívar was eager to read and learn. He was deeply interested in history, politics, philosophy, and literature. The years he spent in France in particular marked a turning point in his life. There he became acquainted with democratic ideals and the spirit of the European Enlightenment. These ideas would later inspire him to lead the fight for independence against the Spanish in Latin America. Bolívar's education in Europe was not limited to books. He also engaged with people from different social backgrounds, learning about human nature and the dynamics of power. These experiences shaped him into a mature leader and helped him understand complex political maneuvers. His time in Europe became both a teacher and a source of inspiration. Bolívar not only gained knowledge but also formed the vision of a future hero, a leader who would one day raise the winds of freedom across all of Latin America. Fact 3. The liberator of Latin America. Bolívar's struggle. Simón Bolívar was not only a leader but also an ideologue. From a young age, he believed in the ideals of freedom and was ready to fight for independence against Spanish rule in Latin America. In the early 1810s, Bolívar led uprisings in his homeland of Venezuela and soon expanded his struggle to other countries under Spanish control. He stood out not only for his military tactics, but also for his vision and charismatic leadership. Bolívar's goal was not just to free his people from Spanish rule. He dreamed of creating a united Latin America built on freedom and democracy. His path was often fraught with difficulties, yet he never retreated. The liberation of Gran, Colombia, and other nations was the result of Bolívar's relentless efforts. He poured all his skill into building armies, capturing strategic cities, and earning the support of the people. Each victory elevated him from a national hero of Venezuela to a legendary figure across all of Latin America. Bolívar's struggle shows that the determination and ideals of one person can sometimes change the destiny of an entire continent. His fight for freedom left an eternal mark on the history of Latin America. Fact 4. Love, family, and the secret of his personal life. Simón Bolívar's personal life was both fascinating and sometimes tragic. From a young age, Bolívar was a romantic and sensitive individual. He experienced several love affairs, but the most significant was his marriage to María Teresa Rodríguez del Toro. This marriage seemed to bring him both love and personal happiness. However, this happiness was short-lived. María Teresa fell ill and passed away just 1 year after their marriage. This loss deeply affected Bolívar, leaving him more isolated both personally and emotionally. He had no children, which led him to focus all his attention and affection on his country and the struggle for independence. Although Bolívar's family and close ones played important roles in his life, his greatest family became the people of Latin America. He channeled his love and care, compensating for the personal voids he had experienced, into the fight for all the nations. Thus, Simón Bolívar's personal life added depth to his leadership and heroism, making his story even more meaningful and human. Fact 5. Leader and President. Pioneer of Gran, Colombia. Simón Bolívar was not only a military leader, but also a statesman. After his great victories, he took on presidential and high-ranking roles to guide the governance of newly formed states. In 1819, he played a key role in the creation of the state of Gran Colombia, which encompassed present-day Colombia, Venezuela, Ecuador, and Panama. As president, Bolívar faced his greatest challenge, not just enforcing the law, but maintaining political stability. He sought to ensure unity and democracy among these countries, yet internal conflicts and competing interests often made his path difficult. Bolívar's presidency tested his leadership skills and vision. He proved himself not only as a strategist in war, but also as a shrewd political tactician. Every decision and action he took was considered not just for his own country, but for the future of all Latin America. This period demonstrated that a great leader is not only a victorious general, but also a politician capable of guiding his people and making tough decisions. Bolívar's presidency showed that his fight was not just for independence, but also for lasting stability and unity across the continent. Fact 6. The desire for unity, Latin America's grand vision. Simón Bolívar's greatest ambition was not merely to end Spanish domination. His dreams were much broader: to create a united, strong, and democratic state across all of Latin America. He believed that if the peoples did not unite, they would face pressure from foreign powers in the future and risk falling into dependence again. As a result of this ideal, he implemented the Gran Colombia project. Bolívar envisioned countries like Colombia, Venezuela, Ecuador, Peru, and Bolivia uniting under a single flag. This unity would represent not only political strength, but also unbreakable brotherhood among nations. However, reality proved different. Internal conflicts, clashing interests, and power struggles weakened Bolívar's dreams. In the final years of his life, he witnessed the disintegration of this ideal. Nevertheless, Bolívar's vision left a lasting mark in history. Even today, when the word unity is mentioned in Latin America, the first name that comes to mind is still Simón Bolívar. Though his dream was never fully realized, it continues to live on as an idea guiding the peoples of the continent. Fact 7. Hero or dictator? Although Simón Bolívar was a symbol of the struggle for freedom, his style of governance was not always universally accepted. His strictness on the battlefield and sometimes authoritarian approach in political decisions sparked considerable debate. At times, he imposed harsh punishments to quell uprisings and maintain stability. Some contemporaries saw him as the savior of the people, while others accused him of trying to become a new king. Even declaring himself dictator of Peru and Bolivia for a period caused disagreements among his supporters. This side of Bolívar made him a more complex and thought-provoking figure. Paradoxically, while fighting for liberty, he sometimes had to resort to strict methods of governance. This fact shows that Bolívar was not just a romantic hero. He was also a head of state carrying the weight of difficult and contradictory decisions. Fact 8. Bolívar's relationship with religion. Between faith and doubt. Simón Bolívar was born into a Catholic family and grew up immersed in church traditions from an early age. At that time, religion in Latin America was not only a matter of personal belief, but also an integral part of political and social life. Bolívar naturally grew up within this environment. However, as his life progressed, his views on religion became more complex. While he respected the church, he was at times critical of its excessive influence in politics. Bolívar believed that the foundation of freedom and the state should not rest on religious dogmas, but on the will and unity of the people. Nevertheless, he recognized religion as a moral support for the people. He allowed prayers to be said before battles in his army and showed respect for people's faith. Yet in his personal life, he was not someone blindly bound by religious rules. For Bolívar, religion was a tool to unite the people, but the path to freedom could never rely solely on faith. Fact 9. The final days. In the shadow of loneliness and illness. In the final years of his life, Simón Bolívar had lost the shine of his victories. Gran Colombia had fragmented, and conflicts arose among the people. Once celebrated as a hero, Bolívar was now both criticized and targeted by his political enemies. On top of that, a severe illness weakened him. He had contracted tuberculosis and gradually lost his strength. As his health rapidly declined, he was forced to witness the collapse of his dream of a united Latin America. Yet history remembers him differently. The defeats and illnesses Bolívar endured in his final years humanized his story of heroism even more. He had devoted his life to his ideals, sacrificing himself, yet passed away without seeing the world he had envisioned. Fact 10. Death and Legacy. December 17, 1830. Simón Bolívar passed away in the city of Santa Marta, Colombia, at just 47 years old, weakened by illness and surrounded by deep loneliness. In the final days of his life, he felt forgotten, and his ideals seemed to have faded. Once hailed as the liberator of Latin America and a beacon of hope for an entire continent, Bolívar now faced his final moments as a tired and ailing man. Yet today, his name lives on in cities, streets, and public squares. Even an entire country, Bolivia, forever bears his name. Though Bolívar may never have witnessed the unity he dreamed of, his voice of freedom and the spirit of a continent remain eternal in history. If you want to discover the hidden stories of people who left their mark on history, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share it with your friends. Because many more fascinating secrets and unforgettable moments from history are still waiting for you.